Welcome to the LouCas Baseball Podcast, brought to you by DrRoto.com. On today's show, we're going over our favorite waiver wire and FAAB editions for the week, broken into 12-team and 15-team editions. We'll end the show with our Adam and Cut 'em segment, these available players based on our personal NFBC leagues. Joined, of course, as always, by the cast in the LouCas Baseball Podcast, Lucas, Beery, and Lucas. We have some young studs, a veteran who's finally showing signs of life at the plate, some potential saves, and much more here this week.
Absolutely, dude. I'm super fired up to be back on the airwaves this week. I know last week you had a super serious sore throat, had me even pinch hit for you on Sirius XM with Dr. Roto here, our boss at the site, and must have been rough. So I'm glad you're feeling better.
I appreciate it, man, and I'm just glad you got the opportunity to fill in for me and Wally Pitt me.
Absolutely, it was a lot of fun.
Good.
Nick Pavetta backed me up a little bit, so with him, he's polarizing, so it was good to finally get a good start off of him and use him in our season-long dynasty that we're in.
Yes, speaking of Pavetta, I think I sent you a lineup earlier today to submit for me on DraftKings. I believe he's one of the pitchers I'm going to use. Nice matchup this weekend, or today, I should say, in Oakland. So that
Awesome.
should be fun. That's a little freebie there for all those DFS players. But let's get into these players we should be looking to add tomorrow on FAAB. Start with the 12-teamers. Tyrone Taylor, been getting regular playing time, making the most of it over the past 2 weeks. He has 6 runs, 3 homers, 13 RBIs. Does have some speed as well. He did steal 6 bags last year and only 243 at bats, so there's a chance he might chip in some steals for you, provide decent counting stats if he does continue to get this regular playing time.
Yes, I think in all 5 outfielder leagues, whether it's 15-team or 12-teamers, 15s he's owned, but 12-teamers, I think he needs to be added. Uh, Hunter Renfroe is going to be returning from the IL soon, and that is going to make a logjam. But I think Lorenzo Cain has been playing poorly enough that Tyrone Taylor will maintain his playing time. He doesn't walk much, but his strikeout rate is more than manageable. He's producing a good little bit of power, and I think the playing time hopefully should remain consistent if Lorenzo Cain hits the bench, which I anticipate with Hunter Renfroe's return.
It makes a lot more sense if you're the Brewers to play the younger, more athletic
Yeah.
player in Taylor than it does with Lorenzo Cain at this point. So I'm with you there.
Yep.
All right, Christopher Morel, highly owned for the most part, but somehow still available in some 12-teamers, even some 15-teamers. 6 stolen bases already this year and just 65 at bats. Playing every day for the Cubbies, has outfield eligibility basically everywhere, but also has shortstop eligibility in some places too. But regardless of the eligibility, as long as he continues to see the consistent playing time, and there's not really a reason why he won't see that playing time, he should be owned in all formats, even if it's just for the stolen bases. But I think he can do more than that.
I agree. He's shown some nice plate discipline, which you love seeing from a really young player. Like you said, he's got 6 steals in only 17 games this year, so he's shown an ability and a willingness on the base paths. He's got a 60 grade run speed tool on Fangraphs, and yeah, I think he's going to have infield and outfield eligibility. The Cubs are going to give him a lot of playing time to see how he can fare, and we only put him on here. He is highly owned, but he is available in over 20% of the NFBC's online championships. So I'm sure he's available on a lot of Yahoo leagues, and I think he's pretty much a must-add if he's available, since he is going to be dual eligible.
Oddly enough, he's owned in my 12-team league on NFBC, but not my 15-team league. You'd think that'd be the other
Yeah.
way around, right?
Well, I think the thing is that he's somewhat of a pop-up prospect. So it's not like he was a Nolan Gorman where everyone was picking him up, and he was kind of just like a guy that just came up for the Cubs. He's not a big name per se, so I can see that a little bit.
Yeah, I guess so. How about Jonathan Scope, man? Started the season
Mm.
terribly. I own him in so many places, and the overall numbers have just looked absolutely terrible. But he's been a steady contributor for the most part in his career, home runs and RBIs for sure. And he's finally heating up over the past 2 weeks, batting 314, 7 runs, 2 homers, 9 RBIs, first base and second base eligibility. And as he continues to heat up, it won't be long before he is widely owned everywhere. You might still be able to squeeze him through relatively cheap. I'm talking maybe 15 FAAB or less because, again, the overall numbers could still scare people away. And overall, the Tigers lineup has basically been anemic to date. So people might just not be paying attention to the hot streak. The only reason why I'm even aware of it is because I've been rostering him and using him and finally getting production.
Yes, and additionally, just add a little bit more color, complaining about his production to me. So, I'm with you. I have a lot of scope as well. It's not predictive, but it does show that he's heating up. He has a 914 OPS over his last 14 days. He is at least seeing the ball well, making some contact, dual eligibility with first base and second base, and he's a veteran who's proven solid batting average with enough power to keep you satisfied. Great lineup spot, even though it's a bad lineup. So in a 12-teamer, if you need a little bit of middle infield or corner infield, I think that he's a nice little pickup who has been bad but has heated up lately.
Yeah, while we're on the subject of Tigers, I know they weren't in our show notes this week, but I do want to say if you are in leagues that don't have IL spots, it's possible that someone gave up on Austin Meadows because of the
Hmm.
vertigo. It's also possible that someone cut Riley Green early on because he missed so much time. But Meadows expected to be activated next week. Riley Green is playing in AAA at the moment. Both could be up in the big leagues sooner rather than later. So if they're floating out there, look at both of those guys as well.
It's a great call out. Actually, both are available in some of my leagues. I think they're both only available in one league each, but yeah, I might have to throw a bid in there. I was really unsure how this vertigo thing is going to come with Austin Meadows since we've seen guys like Nick Senzel and Clint Frazier suffer from it, but I hope that guy's going to be all right, and it looks like he's progressing well.
Yeah, I actually have both of them sitting on my TGFBI bench right now. Meadows I drafted, of course. Riley Green I picked up a couple weeks ago for next to nothing and figured I would just wait it out because I needed the steals. So hopefully that works out. But yeah, I would definitely make sure both those guys aren't sitting out there because they can both be very productive for you. Jose Miranda of the Twins absolutely destroyed the minors last season. Certainly struggled early on this season in his adjustment to the big leagues, but he's coming on lately, man. 3 homers in the past week, eligible at multiple infield positions, and could be an impactful bat if he continues to resemble what he did in the minors a year ago. Kind of reminds me a lot of the aforementioned Scope as a hitter, but arguably better
Mm.
contact skills.
Yeah, I like that comparison. Fangraphs kind of said that he's doing a similar dance to Ty France, where he has no position because he's a bad defender, but he can hit pretty good. So I think that both of those are fairly apt. Um, this Twins lineup for a first place team, Lou, is kind of bad in my opinion, and that's not a bad thing for Jose Miranda because I think he's going to have opportunities if he can hit. So I think he's going to have a tryout here. If he's able to hit, I think they'll be able to find him a home. So I think since he was poor in his first taste this year of the MLB, I think you can sneak him through for a much cheaper price. And who knows, he could become acclimated and hit a lot better in his second go around.
That and I mean, he was heavily at it when he did get the call,
Hmm.
but dropped by so many people, and I don't blame them. It's hard to be patient with a young player that's struggling, unlike
Yeah.
being patient with a veteran who's done so before. How about Jorge Alfaro? This is mostly just a two-catcher league edition. If you're looking for an upgraded catcher, he could be a guy to take a look at. Doesn't play every day, but has been hitting the ball well this season. Gets playing time in the outfield, which is key. Doesn't really see much time at catcher, if I'm not mistaken. But if he continues to hit, Padres may have no choice but to continue to get his bat into the lineup, especially Will Myers heading back to the injured list. So that opens up some space. We were talking before we came on air how much Trent Grisham has struggled this season. So
Hmm.
there are at bats in that Padres outfield if Alfaro continues to hit.
Yeah, I think, in a two catcher league, if you just need a guy who can provide a few RBIs here and there and the occasional home run, yeah, it makes some sense.
Yeah, especially, I mean, it may not be a long absence, but I just lost Omar Narvaez in a couple places with some COVID
Same.
stuff. So maybe even just a temporary addition if you are set at catcher, but lacking someone for maybe the week, and you don't want to have the dead spot in the lineup, you should be able to get Alfaro for next to nothing, right?
Yep, I think so.
How about Edward Cabrera? Nasty stuff, the ability to be a nice difference maker for you, especially in the strikeout department. Got some more seasoning in the minor leagues to begin the season, although he wasn't great. Did strike out 32 batters in 23 and two-thirds innings. Did make a first start of the season in the majors. It was a success. 9 strikeouts in 6 innings, just 1 hit. Something to consider here, though, is the start he made, LouCas, came as part of a doubleheader. So there is the possibility he is sent back to the minors before making another start. Sure, he has the stuff, he has the prospect pedigree to stick in the big leagues, but if you're thinking of spending big time FAAB on him, I would consider maybe not doing so because he might be back in the minors next week. Could be a gamble.
Yeah, that's a fair point to point out there, since these guys' roles are fluid since they are not established on the younger player side. But I do have a lot of excitement for Edward Cabrera. I've got him stashed away in a ton of draft champions leagues, and I was happy to see how he did. First off, he has premium velocity, so that's automatically going to help his case. And he got a 50% whiff rate on his changeup, which is about a 93, 94 mile an hour like power changeup. So it's a pretty ridiculous pitch. He's going to have a great home ballpark to pitch in. And last but not least, all the projection systems have him well over a full strikeout per inning, almost at 10K9. So I think that there's a lot of appeal to him. And since a lot of money has already been spent up on NFBC, and last but not least, he has a tough start next week against the Astros. I think that you might be able to slip him through at a fairly cheaper bid for a really potentially premium pitching prospect. So I like him a lot. Tough matchup next week, and I'm going to monitor if they send him down. But they did use Elizer Hernandez out of the bullpen last night, so maybe he's demoted and he gets that rotation spot instead of Elizer.
Yeah, and I kind of see a lot of Hunter Green here.
Hmm.
Crazy live
I like that.
arm, tons of strikeout potential, but certainly command issues. Walks are an issue, even in that start, I believe. But there's certainly tons
Yeah.
of upside. I mean, I spent big on Hunter Green, and although he's hurt me at times, he certainly helped me in the strikeout department. Cabrera in a much better pitching situation though in terms of ballpark. The Marlins churning out great pitchers over the past few years, so I definitely like the Cabrera situation better. The only difference is that Green we knew wasn't losing his job. Cabrera could potentially go back to the minors, but I like everything you had to say there. Anything else?
No, I just want to point out I'm really excited to potentially put some bids in on him. I have a lot of nice hitting offenses, but I've spent a little bit less on pitching. So a guy with this upside to get a full strikeout per inning, if not maybe 10K9, if things pan out well for him, let me tell you, I'm going to be interested and I'm going to be aggressive.
Alrighty, how about Paul Sewald of the Mariners? There's not really a clear closer in this Mariners bullpen. There wasn't to begin the season, and there still isn't. But Sewald's gotten three opportunities over the past 8 or 9 days. He's converted two of the three saves. The biggest thing for me, LouCas, is even after blowing one, the next opportunity went right back to him. So that tells me the Mariners do believe in him as their guy, or certainly one of their guys. And overall, good numbers this season: 2.33 ERA, 0.82 WHIP, 147 batting average against, and a K per inning. I own Diego Castillo in a bunch of places. Still, I've cut him in others. Seawald is someone I'd rather own at this point, getting more opportunities. So if you have a share of the Mariners bullpen and it's not Seawald, I would certainly look to get Seawald over that Mariners bullpen share.
Yeah, and 100% agree there. I think it is going to continue to be a committee, whether people like it or not, unfortunately. And in your 15 team leagues, of course, he's more than likely scooped up. But in a 12 teamer, Lou, uh, pitchers are starting to get blown up more and more with the weather heating up and with offenses ticking up. So putting him in as your ninth pitcher, even if he just vultures a save, maybe one save a week, maybe he doesn't get a save, but he's going to protect your ratios a lot better than the replacement pitcher, since injuries are hitting pitching staffs and offenses ticking up. So he's a nice ratio protector with save opportunities.
Yeah, and in the 12 team leagues, I don't focus as much on drafting as many closers either. Um, so I am looking for saves. I mean, I drafted Soto and he's been solid. I picked up Clay Holmes before the Chapman injury, so I have two solid closers at the moment.
That's
But
nice.
being able to add Seawald as a third or having two and a half type of closers could certainly be useful in those 12 teamers. Obviously, if you have a lot of saves, it might not necessarily be worth the addition. But of course, if you're in leagues where you can trade, saves come at a premium. So it's never a bad idea to have too many, or maybe there's no
Excellent.
such thing as too many.
Excellent ratio protector as well. Like I said, with pitching, you know, the 60th best pitcher right now is going to be worse than it is in a few months when more injuries hit. But one last thing I wanted to point out. Uh, some people liked Ken Giles as a save source in Seattle, and he did start a rehab assignment, but it's gone very poorly. So something to monitor since he's struggled a lot off of Tommy John surgery and his rehab assignments.
Yeah, I'm not banking on a guy that hasn't pitched in like 2 years, you know?
Right. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan either at all. At all.
Certainly something to note, though. Good point. 15 teamers. We'll start with Luis Garcia, infielder for the Washington Nationals. Interesting player, certainly struggled in spring training. Didn't make the opening day roster because of it, but has had success this season in AAA. Slash line of 314, 368, 531, 8 homers, and a steal. Going to need to hit at the big league level in order to actually remain in the big leagues, something he's failed to do, at least in comparison to what he's done in the minors. On base skills in the majors have been dreadful, but there is something promising. 26 extra base hits last year in 70 games. Clearly,
Hmm.
that is something that could potentially be a staying point for him if he can continue to hit for extra bases. The doubles, he had a lot of them, some homers, a few triples as well. So this is a guy that on a bad team could get a fair shake and at least help you in certain categories.
Yeah, I think you made a really important point there at the end whenever you pointed out that this is a bad team. So that is going to give him a little bit more ample opportunities. He's been able to pretty much crush AAA, but he's been bad in the MLB. So whether he
Lucas,
gets,
let's be real. Is Alcides Escobar really blocking anybody? I mean, I know right
oh,
now he's on the injured list, but that's basically who would be standing in Garcia's way.
I mean, it's honestly been pretty much a huge joke that he hasn't gotten the opportunity sooner. But yeah, I mean, he's been really excellent at AAA, but he's been bad in the MLB. So some people kind of think that he could be a quad A player, but
Yeah,
just
you could say the same about Kalenic too, right?
exactly. I mean, he's too
I'm not
young to
giving
be
up
that late.
on either of those guys or any of those young players. Remember when people were writing off Vladdy like 3 years ago too? Oh, he doesn't hit the ball in the air enough. He's going to be a bust.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sometimes these judgments can come far too quickly, and with Luis Garcia being only 22, I mean, you can't really put that on him yet. I do think though that if you add him, he is going to quite considerably hurt your power if you're starting him regularly. But the batting average could be a nice little asset. And last but not least, hitting at the bottom of the lineup for now. You got to temper your bids a little bit, but he is a nice player to keep an eye on and maybe throw in some bids if you need middle infield.
Yes, sir. How about Keegan Thompson? Doesn't have a defined role right now at the Cubs. He is a starter. He's a reliever. Is he neither? Don't know. Bottom line here, he eats innings, picking up wins, not hurting your ratios. There's not much upside, it would appear, but he's someone you could kind of plug in for a week or two if you have injuries in your rotation, and then maybe take it week by week from there.
Yeah, as a Cubs fan, I've had an opportunity to watch him a few times, and the numbers are not super impressive from a strikeout perspective or from a swing and miss. But I know that this is kind of anecdotal, but I think this guy knows how to pitch, and he's going to get a regular opportunity. You can use him in key matchups in the week in L Central, and I like him as a depth play add and a 15 teamer for pitching.
All right, how about Steven Matz? Doesn't have good numbers overall this season. Is a proven pitcher, though. He's got a track record of success
Hmm.
coming off the injured list. More than a strikeout per inning on the season, and because he's not due to come off the IL until next weekend, you might actually be able to squeeze him through FAAB this week at a low cost. Once he's activated, the price surely going to rise.
Yes, the selling point with Mats that I really had before the season, getting him in a handful of leagues, was that Cardinals defense will be able to help back him up, provide him some great run support with an amazing home ballpark that's very pitcher friendly, and you're going to have the opportunity to get him off of FAB. So the shoulder issue was deemed to be quite minor, which was a sigh of relief for many that invested in him, and he is going to have one rehab appearance, but you should be able to pick him up this weekend, stash him away if you can just reserve him this week, and then hopefully have him next weekend, 2 weeks from now. So yeah.
Makes sense to me. How about Daniel Hudson having a good season in the Dodgers bullpen, regardless of the role that he's been used in? When Kimbrel has struggled, he stepped in as the closer, gotten the job done. He's worth a speculative ad in case he continues to get save opportunities, either due to Kimbrel being ineffective or Kimbrel getting hurt. Worst case scenario here, you get a pitcher with good ratios on a good team who's more than a K per inning.
Yeah, I think you hit it pretty well there. Similar to Seawald, he's another guy who can help protect your ratios, who's actually a good pitcher. He gets plenty of volume with 18 innings so far this year, so that's pretty good for a reliever at this point. And if Kimbrel struggles, he's the next man up. And Kimbrel's had struggles, although he could easily bounce back. But even if he doesn't, Lou, they're pretty cautious with Kimbrel. They're not going to ride him and abuse him. So Hudson does get the occasional save if Kimbrel's been used on a back to back or something like that.
Definitely, and the Dodgers already looking to October the way they're playing. They want Kimbrel
Right?
healthy. Michael Walker of the Red Sox, a hot ad earlier in the season. Then he went on the IL, dropped in many places. Back now, he has been for 3 starts, and now he's shaken off the rust of being sidelined for 17 days. I think he's worth an ad again. Should see plenty of run support in Boston. Looks to be locked into a rotation spot, and at least for this week, he's in line for 2 starts. So even if it's a short-term thing, it's never a bad idea to add a guy for 2 starts.
Yeah, Waka is definitely a kind of a volume darling where he's just going to continue to pitch. He doesn't go, past 6 innings most of the time, and he doesn't have a high strikeout rate, but he plays for a winning team. That's going to give him opportunities to win. Um, yeah, I think he's just a decent pitcher that if you're in need of a guy that can help provide some depth, kind of like we saw with Wade Miley last year, I like him as a pickup.
All right, well, let's get into Adam and cut him. We'll start with the Adam. What do you got?
Yeah, so I noticed in 12 team online NFBC championship leagues, Garrett Cooper was still available in about half those leagues. And, he's not necessarily a high upside player, but batting average can be hard to come by. And you might want to start chipping away at it sooner rather than later. And he does have about 15 home run power in my estimation. So a nice 280 to 270 batting average with league average power and a great lineup spot with first base and outfield. I thought Garrett Cooper should have been added in more online championship 12 team leagues.
Yeah, it's a good point. First base, quarter infield, outfield, past 10 days batting over 400. So definitely a good player. Anyone else on the Adam, or are we moving over to the cuts?
Yes, one player that I wanted to throw on the Atom, and this is kind of just off the cuff. I noticed that he wasn't in our notes, and I want to change that. So Texas Rangers third baseman Josh Smith came over from your Yankees in the big Joey Gallo trade, who we'll be referencing soon. And I think Josh Smith is another guy who's a batting average asset, and he's a young prospect coming up, getting his footing in. He did have a shoulder that kind of caused him to miss some time last night, but if he's cleared and healthy, Lou, I bet you can get him easily for less than $10 in even very competitive 15 team league. So I love Josh Smith as an ad.
Yeah, I remember when I saw him get promoted. You were the first person I messaged about it because I know you've liked him for a while. So,
Yeah,
no, I get you there. Over to the cuts, you mentioned Joey Gallo. Well, he's on this list, and probably because he's destroying your average and your on base percentage. He's not hitting for as much power as expected. He's even losing some playing time, too. Giancarlo Stanton's activated today. LaCastro's activated. Matt Carpenter's suddenly in the fold, getting regular at
yeah,
bats.
wow.
And although Gallo could get hot at any time, it's really hard to hold on to him at this point. He's been a huge disappointment in a league where you have no IL and you're likely holding on to some injured players on the bench. It's really hard to hold on to a guy like Gallo clogging up another bench spot with how much he's struggling because there's no way you can afford to have him in your starting lineup right now.
Yeah, you as a Yankees fan, I figured this would be a good, therapy opportunity for you to get that all out about Joey Gallo and how he's kind of just been a disaster. But yeah, I mean, he's swinging more, he's making less contact. It's just been a disaster, and you need to have that production now. I mean, you can't just waste away your batting average and let him just be a boat anchor for your team. So, a definite cut in 12 teamers and probably a cut in 15s. I'd rather have Garrett Cooper than him right now because Cooper's at least given you some hits pretty much most nights and great lineup spot. Gallo, this blew my mind, Lou. 5 home runs this year, and only 7 RBIs. I mean, that I just don't even understand how that happens. Just insane.
Especially in a lineup that's scoring as many runs as the Yankees.
Exactly. I mean, that just shows you how little contact the guy makes, and he's clearly in his head. He could snap out of it and have a nice, you know, 18 to 20 home run rest of the season, but I just don't think you can keep waiting on that, and I would dump him if I had him.
Yeah, I think it's time to. Another Yankee here, Miguel Andujar,
Hmm.
wasn't widely owned necessarily. I had him in a couple places though because he was hitting in the middle of the Yankees order. He was playing regularly, driving in runs, scoring runs, even added a couple stolen bases. But again, I mentioned Stanton and LeCastro coming back. There's just no room for him on the MLB roster. So now he's back in the minors. If you do own him, feel free to cut him because until the Yankees have a need for him once again, he's obviously useless.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's kind of in that Clint Frazier part of his career a few years ago where the Yankees just don't really need him, and he should probably get traded, but he's probably too good to move for the scraps that they'll get back for him since I don't think the offers are there. But yeah,
No,
I agree.
it really is a shame because he can actually hit, and he's
Exactly.
made vast
Yeah.
improvements as an outfielder. He used to be a disaster out there. He's pretty steady now. So it really
Hmm.
is a shame. And Joey Gallo, that's actually the problem, believe it or not. If Joey Gallo wasn't on the roster, that spot could go to Andujar. Andujar could be the everyday left fielder.
That's true. And you'd still have Josh Smith and all the other prospects that but I understand Gallo can, kind of
Oh
masquerade
no,
as an
I'm not even
outfielder.
talking about the trade. I'm talking about now. If the Yankees can do
Yeah.
anything to trade Gallo away, if someone will even cash considerations or a minor league arm, whatever it might be, they just don't really have a need for Gallo because even with Stanton going down and Donaldson being out for a while, Gallo wasn't playing every day, and they were fine. So they've kind of proven that they're okay without Gallo. Having guys like Marwin Gonzalez who can play everywhere, like they can figure it out with or without Gallo.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm surprised to see that Andujar was a full 60 grade prospect. I mean, that's just I would not have guessed that.
Yeah, I mean he's always had elite bat skills, and
Yeah.
he's worked on his plate discipline. This is a guy that if he's in the major leagues, he should absolutely be owned in fantasy. It's just the problem of the team he's on and the depth they have, and the fact that he actually has minor league options and other guys don't.
Yeah, I can't believe he still has options too at age 27. So, like I said with Clint Frazier, hopefully he can get freed out of this situation and, go be a full-time regular on Kansas City or, Baltimore or something.
Yeah, maybe not Baltimore because that'll come back and bite me in the butt.
I
Anything
agree.
else here, brother?
No, I think we pretty much hit it well.
All right, well, that'll wrap up this episode of the LouCas Baseball Podcast brought to you by DrRoto.com. Lou Landers with Lucas Beery. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.